told you that intentionally pushing your stomach out to take just a single breath could, like, physically rewrite your immune system's response to the very next stressful email you get?
I mean, it sounds completely like science fiction.
It really does. Because when most of us hear the word yoga, we have this, well, this massive culturally ingrained misconception.
Right, the human pretzel.
Yes, exactly. We picture this incredibly flexible person, probably on a cliff somewhere at sunrise, twisted up into a shape that just defies anatomy. And we look at that and think, well, I can barely touch my toes without bending my knees.
So that is definitely not for me.
Right.
It looks like this aesthetic performance or, an extreme sport for the hyperflexible. And that visual completely intimidates anyone who feels stiff or out of shape or just overwhelmed by modern life. But the thing is, that visual is totally missing the point.
Which is exactly why we're doing this deep dive today, because our stack of sources, it completely flips that script for you. We're going to explore the multifaceted, full system benefits of yoga. And our mission today is really to show you that this isn't about touching your toes. It's about hacking your brain chemistry, optimizing your internal organs, and this is the big one, changing your entire relationship with stress.
It really is a complete paradigm shift. Because at its core, if you look across the physiological and the neurological data, yoga is fundamentally a practice of slow, mindful observation.
Observation.
Right, rather than just physical exertion. It's an intricate system designed to build a profound mind-body connection. The flexibility, that's just a byproduct. The real work, like the life-changing work, is happening invisibly inside your nervous system.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we even talk about moving the body or, doing a single physical pose, we really need to understand what this practice is doing to the brain and the endocrine system.
The chemistry.
Exactly, the chemistry. The source data on hormones is wild. Like, regular practice actively drops the levels of cortisol.
Which is our primary stress hormone.
Right. It drops cortisol while simultaneously normalizing our levels of serotonin, the hormone that's primarily responsible for regulating our mood. So it sounds like yoga isn't just a workout. It's basically a natural chemical tuning dial for the brain.
What's fascinating here is how directly that chemical tuning impacts our actual neurology. I mean, neurologists used to believe this total myth that once you reach a certain age, your brain just stops growing.
Which is pretty depressing to think about.
It is, but recent science completely disproves that. Our brains are constantly growing new connections throughout our entire lives through neuroplasticity. And the research highlights that yoga specifically targets and positively influences a region of the brain called the hippocampus.
Wait, that's the memory center, right?
Yes. But it does more than just store your memories. The hippocampus is actively developing new links between neurons. And here's the mechanical reality of that. When you are chronically stressed, your body is just flooded with cortisol.
Just constantly bathed in it.
Right. And high sustained levels of cortisol are actually toxic to the hippocampus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they can literally cause it to shrink. So by using this practice to drop cortisol levels, you are removing a neurotoxin. You're creating this low cortisol optimized chemical environment.
So it's not just feeling good, you're physically protecting the brain.
Exactly. Yoga directly leads to improved memory and a healthier network of neurons.
Right.
Because your internal environment is no longer in a state of, chemical panic. You're giving your neurons the literal chemical space they need to thrive.
So not only will your muscles be fit, but your physical brain architecture actually improves. But the systemic benefits, they don't stop at the brain. There are some really surprising details in the research about how this calming effect ripples down into other organs. For instance, the thyroid.
Right, and this is a brilliant example of how interconnected our systems are. So the thyroid regulates your metabolism. When you enter a deep state of calm through these practices, your thyroid actually slows down a bit.
Wait, I have to challenge that, because that totally contradicts everything we hear in fitness culture. We're always told we want a fast metabolism to, burn calories and lose weight. Why would a slower thyroid be beneficial?
It's a great question. It basically comes down to the difference between panic and efficiency. When you're stressed, your sympathetic nervous system, your fight-or-flight response, is fully engaged.
Right.
And in that state, your body assumes it is actively under attack. So it rapidly burns through resources, spikes your blood sugar, and chemically signals your body to hoard fat for survival.
Because it thinks winter is coming or a tiger is chasing you.
Exactly. It's a highly inefficient, panic-driven metabolism.
So a fast metabolism isn't always a good metabolism.
You got it. When yoga shifts you into your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest state, Your thyroid slows its frenetic pacing. Your body no longer needs to rapidly burn resources in a panic. It becomes able to process useful substances and nutrients with far less waste.
It's just operating more efficiently.
Right. And because of this metabolic optimization,
Yeah.
shifting out of that fat storage survival mode, you can actually lose weight and improve digestion,
Yeah.
even though you aren't, sprinting on a treadmill for an hour.
The system just stops panicking and starts processing fuel properly. That
Yeah.
makes so much sense. And researchers even note this parasympathetic shift extending to the urinary system, like restoring muscle tonus to correct imbalances.
Incredible.
There are even studies suggesting it indirectly influences the female pelvis, potentially increasing blood flow. I mean, it is a true full-body upgrade. But it makes me wonder, how do we actually access this tuning dial?
What do you mean?
Like, if I'm stressed at my desk, I can't just close my eyes and, command my serotonin to rise and my thyroid to chill out.
No, you certainly can't force it through sheer willpower. But you do have a physical bridge between your conscious mind and your automatic nervous system. It's something you do approximately 15 to 20 times a minute without even thinking about it. Precisely. Moving from internal chemistry to the active mechanics of breathing, we find the foundational tool for all these physiological shifts. Yogis call the conscious regulation of inhales and exhales pranayama.
Pranayama, okay. Which brings us to belly breathing. And again, I really have to point out how completely counterintuitive this is. The lungs are up in our chest, like behind our ribs. Why on earth are we focusing on pushing our bellies out?
Right, because modern society conditions us to...
To suck it in all day long. We're
Yeah.
totally obsessed with maintaining a flat stomach.
It feels counterintuitive, but anatomically, a soft, expanding belly is exactly what we need for optimal oxygen exchange. When we talk about belly breathing or diaphragmatic breathing, we aren't literally routing air into your stomach,
Well, I hope not.
right? The diaphragm is a massive, umbrella-shaped muscle sitting just below your lungs. If you are constantly sucking it in and keeping your abdominal wall rigid for aesthetics, that diaphragm has a solid floor beneath it. It has nowhere to go.
So by keeping our stomachs tight, we're essentially suffocating our lower lungs.
You are severely restricting them, yes. But by consciously letting the belly go soft and move out while you inhale, you drop the floor out from under the lungs.
Wow.
You create physical space for that diaphragm muscle to drop downward. And when it drops, it acts like a powerful vacuum, pulling maximum oxygen deep into the lowest lobes of the lungs, where oxygen exchange is actually most efficient.
Okay, so relaxing the stomach is the mechanical prerequisite for a full breath. That is a game changer. And that's just the inhale. The source text highlights a crucial physiological mechanism tied to the exhale side of this breath, specifically involving the heart.
Yeah, this is perhaps the most vital piece of the nervous system puzzle. Your heart rate actually fluctuates with your breath. It speeds up slightly on the inhale, and it slows down on the exhale.
Oh, really?
Yes. So the heart is fundamentally more relaxed during an exhalation. When you practice pranayama, you pay special attention to extended, really slow exhalations.
So by intentionally dragging out that outward breath, you're actively manipulating your own heart rate.
You are directly stimulating the vagus nerve, which runs from your brain down through your chest and abdomen. That extended exhale sends a literal biological signal of safety to your entire cardiovascular system. This improves something called heart rate variability, or HRV.
Let's define that, actually, because HRV is a metric that pops up everywhere in health data right now.
HRV measures the tiny fluctuations in time down to the millisecond between your heartbeats. A heart that beats like a rigid, perfect metronome is actually a sign of a highly stressed system.
Wait, you don't want a perfectly steady heartbeat?
No, you want high variability. High HRV means your nervous system is resilient. It can quickly adapt to stress and then immediately recover. By extending your exhales, you flood the blood with oxygen, boost your HRV, and naturally lower your blood pressure.
This is huge for people suffering from hypertension. It's a way to actively lower blood pressure and build cardiovascular resilience without, a massive financial investment or a new medication, just by changing the mechanical rhythm of how they exhale. Though, of course, anyone with health concerns should always consult a doctor before starting new physical routines.
Always. But the underlying mechanics are undeniable. The slow, extended breath anchors the nervous system.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because breathing in a vacuum isn't enough. We don't live in vacuums. We live in office chairs. We are the desk-bound generation.
We really are.
So how do we take that newly oxygenated, vagus nerve-regulated system and apply it to a skeleton that's been warped by sitting at a screen all day?
That is where the physical poses, the asanas, come in. They are the mechanical antidote to our sedentary lifestyle. But the golden rule for executing these poses is that they must be done with slow, mindful muscle training.
Meaning no aggressive bouncing or yanking.
Exactly. It's about controlling the muscles in slow motion, constantly evaluating the feedback your body is giving you.
Right. The goal is gradual development, not some competition to see who can bend the furthest. And it's crucial to understand muscle physiology here. There is a profound difference between a healthy stretch and a dangerous one.
A very fine line.
Proper stretching means the belly of the muscle tightens and aches just a bit. But if you feel sharp or pulling sensations near your joints, like where the tendons and ligaments are, you are overstretching. That leads to tears and joint vulnerability.
So with that careful, slow motion approach in mind, let's look at how we can counter the specific physical damages of a typical workday. Think about what happens around 2 p.m. when you've been hunched over a laptop for 6 hours.
Ugh. Your spine is basically locked into a rigid C shape. Your shoulders are rounded forward, your chest is totally caved in, and the back muscles are overstretched and exhausted from just trying to hold your heavy head up.
Exactly. So instead of just looking at yoga as random stretching, look at how an asana like the side bend acts as a direct mechanical countermeasure. You're sitting or standing, stretching one hand over your head while leaning to the side.
Just opening everything up.
Right. You are laterally opening up the rib cage, decompressing the spinal discs, and forcing those back muscles to move into planes of motion they never experience in an office chair.
And what about higher up? Because the constant looking down at smartphones and screens creates what's known as tech neck. The cervical spine loses its natural curve, placing dozens of pounds of extra pressure on the upper back and neck muscles.
Yoga directly strengthens that cervical support system. And more importantly, it builds physical self-awareness. When you practice these mindful alignments on the mat, you start to carry that awareness with you.
You take it off the mat.
You do. You'll actually start to notice the exact moment your neck jumps forward toward your phone at the grocery store, and you'll instinctively straighten it.
Let's follow this 2 p.m. timeline. To counteract that C-shaped spine, you could drop to the floor for the cat and cow poses, right? You're on your hands and knees. For the cat pose, you actively round your back toward the ceiling, tucking your chin.
And this perfectly aligns with those extended exhales we talked about, pushing all the stale air out while strengthening the abdominal wall.
Yeah. And then you fluidly transition into cow pose, arching the back down and opening the chest wide.
Which mechanically opens the lungs for a massive inhale. It creates this dynamic rhythm between the flexion of your spine and the capacity of your breath.
It's like a massage for your internal organs.
It really is. But eventually, the body needs to recover. That is where child's pose comes in. You kneel, sit back on your heels, and stretch your torso and arms forward along the floor.
That one feels like a complete system reboot. And functionally, it's brilliant because it engages the absolute minimum number of muscles possible. It allows the chronically tight lower back and neck to completely rest and decompress. It's the ultimate restorative posture.
Then we have to eventually stand up from that desk. We move into standing asanas like the forward fold. You bend over, letting gravity pull your head toward your knees, which heavily stretches the hamstrings and buttocks muscles that physically shorten and tighten from sitting in a chair all day.
Though there's a great mechanical modification here. If your lower back is in pain, don't let your spine dangle. Put your hands on your knees to support the weight of your torso and keep your spine straight while you stretch the legs. It's all about listening to your structural limits.
Definitely. Then there is chair pose, which is essentially hovering as if sitting in an invisible chair. It demands a massive burst of energy and floods the thigh muscles with blood. But the traditional posture raises both hands straight above the head.
And here's where we have to pause for a really fascinating physiological safety note. Raising your arms straight up forces your heart to pump blood vertically against gravity, which inherently spikes your blood pressure.
Right.
So if you are someone managing hypertension, you get the exact same leg strengthening benefits by keeping your hands firmly on your hips, thereby protecting your cardiovascular system.
It is a perfect example of why the why matters just as much as the how. We also see poses designed to test our nervous system's response to instability. Take tree pose and warrior two. Warrior two really stabilizes the body, while tree pose tests it. You're standing on one leg, resting the opposite foot on your inner thigh, trying to hold your hands at your chest.
It is the ultimate balance test. And let's be real, you are going to wobble. Your ankle is going to shake as it tries to hold your entire body weight.
Sure.
And when we wobble, when we feel unstable, What is our immediate physiological instinct?
To freeze,
Exactly. We hold our breath.
which is the single worst thing you could do for your balance.
Right. Because balance isn't just in the ankle, it requires constant, rapid micro adjustments coordinated by the brain. If you hold your breath, you deprive the brain of the oxygen it needs to process those
You're
adjustments.
suffocating the control center.
Exactly. Breathing steadily through the wobble is exactly what gets oxygen to the brain faster, allowing you to regain your equilibrium. You literally have to breathe your way through the instability.
And that physical realization, breathing through the wobble, is the perfect bridge to the final, most profound level of the practice. Releasing physical tension, expanding the breath, holding balance in the face of instability, these aren't just physical achievements. Relaxing the body is simply the prerequisite for relaxing the mind.
So, what does this all mean? We've dropped our cortisol, we've stimulated our vagus nerve to lower our heart rate, and we've untwisted our spines. But the ultimate goal of yoga seems to be using all this physical and respiratory control to fundamentally change how we interact with our own thoughts.
Yes.
And this addresses the single biggest barrier to entry for most people. People always say, well, I can't do the mental part of yoga, I can't meditate because my brain won't shut up. But the science of mindfulness says that trying to stop your thoughts is a complete misunderstanding of how the brain actually works.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, your brain is an organ designed to generate thoughts. Just like your lungs are designed to breathe, you cannot stop thinking.
It's literally doing its job.
Right. Mindfulness, which is the foundational meditation practice in yoga, isn't about forcefully emptying the brain. It is about becoming a non-judgmental observer. You sit, you breathe, and when a stressful thought about work pops up, you don't panic. You simply watch the thought arise, acknowledge it, and watch it fade away.
You eliminate the evaluative judgment. You don't label the thought as good or bad, you just observe it. And the source text connects this mental composure straight back to our physical immune system, which completely blew my mind. It all comes down to proteins called cytokines.
Cytokines are signaling proteins. When a germ or virus enters your organism, your body produces cytokines to sound the alarm, prompting your immune system to respond and attack the invader with inflammation.
Like sending in the troops.
Exactly. And in acute short-term situations, this inflammatory response is a life-saving mechanism.
But the danger is that our bodies can't always tell the difference between a physical virus and a stressful thought.
That's the catch.
When we have an acute negative response to a thought, when we get deeply worked up, angry, or panicked about an email, our body sounds the exact same alarm. It produces an abundance of cytokines.
And that overproduction causes chronic inflammation.
Right, which is linked to almost every major physical deterioration in human health, from heart disease to autoimmune disorders.
The way we react to our thoughts directly triggers our immune response. That is the ultimate mind-body connection. By practicing mindfulness on the mat, by learning to observe a physical wobble or a distracting thought without immediately judging it or panicking, we are training our nervous system.
We're rewiring the alarm system.
Precisely. We learn how to manage stressful situations without triggering that acute cytokine alarm. We actively lower the chronic inflammation in our bodies simply by changing our relationship to our own thoughts. You learn to be friendly to yourself. You are no longer the tense, inflamed prisoner of your own head.
The tense prisoner of your own head. That is such a vivid way to put it, and it perfectly summarizes everything we've unpacked today. Yoga is so far beyond touching your toes. It is this incredibly slow, mindful integration of chemistry, breath, and movement.
It really is a full biological toolkit.
It is a toolkit that repairs our desk-bound spines, bolsters our immune systems by calming our inflammatory responses, and builds a resilient, observant mind.
This raises an important question, though, and it is something for you to deeply consider after we wrap up today.
Let's hear it.
We've seen how the core of this practice is learning to observe physical instability and mental distractions without immediate judgment while you are on the mat. How might adopting that exact observer mindset change the way you react to the next high-pressure conflict or that next demanding email you receive in your daily life?
Wow, it's a completely different way of moving through the world. You know, we started today talking about the myth of the human pretzel, the idea that yoga is just about forcing yourself into an unnatural shape. But it turns out the reality is the exact opposite. Yoga isn't about twisting yourself into something you're not. It's about untwisting the tension, the stress, and the rigid habits of modern life so you can finally return to the resilient, balanced shape you were always meant to be.